Hello. So I was asked recently, how do we self-realize? What's the path of self-realization? What are the steps? And it's a very specific question, but also quite general because there's, on some level, endless practices, paths, approaches, techniques, methods, teachers, transmissions, energies, resources that could support one, guide one, and bring one through, stages of self-realization, which is, an awakening to the truth, an awakening to reality, enlightenment, ascension, path of, um, you know, full starfire, Adashi return, uh, walking the Christic path, coming to know oneself as a Christ or Buddha, or Christ Buddha. There's many ways to describe it. On a visceral level, we could say coming to the divine love, to know divine love. Come to know divine love and experience that divine love, or eternal peace, right? True peace within oneself. And so this question is an interesting one, firstly because within myself, who am I to really say exactly what the stages are for any individual? I can simply share the path that I've taken on some level, and the methods and approaches and perspectives and teachings and things that I've engaged in over these many years and continue to. We can also identify what some other individuals have explored, because even though it is very specific and it is a science, it's still variable. It does change. It does change in the sense, from person to person, the unique steps and stages and paths and methods and techniques, et cetera, that unique individuals may engage. So it's going to be quite different. But there is an underlying core focus that we can bring our attention to that may assist and may be an underlying aspect that is applicable to all. And what would that be? In my view, it would be the desire for this self-realization or awakening or enlightenment or truth or divine love. This ultimate desire, focus upon this ultimate desire for the divine love of God's source, as it would be described in Kahlonic Science Freedom Teaching material. But this is no different than devotional bhakti in Hinduism, or, that devotion is underlying in many traditions as a fundamental aspect of the path, where there is nothing more important to you than this specific focus, right? Of awakening to truth, awakening to divine love, realizing yourself, the path of enlightenment, path of the Christ Buddha, the path of, returning to your knowing that you are a divine being made in the image of God's source and are a co-creator within this eternal, time-space reality. So, what is greater than that? What is higher than that? What is more important than that? There is nothing more important than that, and that is what, and that's it, right? The path, in so many ways, of, these topics that we're describing, is really a coming to reality, right? So to come to your natural state, or to realize yourself as the truth, as a co-creator with God's source, or as God's source, or to know eternal peace, divine love, is really a coming to reality. It's like coming to grips with reality, like waking up to what is actually the case, meaning your natural state is this divine love, it is this natural peace, it is this eternal, like, endless creativity and knowing of the virtues that make us feel, so fulfilled and aligned with how life is naturally flowing, like we're just flowing through this natural river, and it's a non-resistance to everything that's arising. That way is the natural way, is the organic way. It's the in truth, the normal way, which is, maybe not so much normal anymore. And so to come to that reality, like, okay, this couch is blue. So if I was living like it was, some other color, green, purple, yellow, red, whatever, well, I would, at some point I would wake up and say, oh, this couch is blue. Wow, this whole time. Right? So you're actually just coming to reality. You're not like adding or subtracting or multiplying or dividing or, all these things that we think we're doing on the path. We're actually just coming to truth. So in what I had mentioned before, where there is nothing more important than this path, to actually walk and progress on the path is actually coming to the reality of that desire, to place all of one's attention upon the desire to know this truth, to awaken to the reality that there is nothing more important in one's life than to realize themselves, to come to the true nature, and to to all the things, to to awaken to all the things, right? And And so, funny enough, we could walk our whole life just believing that the couch is yellow. Our whole life we just think it's this and think it's that and think life is this and think life is that. Think life is in all these other things. So all these other focuses are more important than this one desire. All these other desires are more important than this one desire. And so we place our attention upon those things and we focus our energy and time into those things for a myriad of different results, but never really satiating the true underlying desire that all of those desires were made in the image of, or appearing in the image of. So we could go many, many lifetimes living that and exploring that, but and that's all valid and useful on the path, because throughout those phases we may be developing that concentration, which is one of the most fundamental core attributes and skills that has to be developed to be able to place this ultimate desire at the utmost focus of one's path. I know for myself, from initial awakenings in my teen years, there was always this concentration. Whatever it was martial arts or fitness or personal development or business or any of these things, that concentration was always there. It was like an obsession. Because at the core, there was really an underlying desire to find love in this thing. And so it would be pursued for an extended period of time until it was realized that it was not this thing, that this thing could not provide what the true desire was. And so then that was the next up level in the movement and the retraction back into a consideration of, okay, well, what else could potentially provide this? What am I really seeking now? And each time there was like a dark night of the soul type of thing, because so much identity was wrapped into that relationship, right? How much do we go through pains when we relieve ourselves, or the grief we find when we distance from a relationship? So for me, it was the distancing from the relationship with particular identities, the martial artist, the businessman, the person on a personal development path, or on this path or this path. And so each of those were stepping stones to then come to, what's been really the predominant focus of the past decade, which was realizing God as oneself, as what is the true reality, what is the creator, the origin, the original essence of this creation, of this creator that I am and that all of existence is. That was ultimately the next concentration, and that focus was what revealed, like I had mentioned in the Freedom Teachings Kahlonic science tradition, the ultimate desire, the desire for the divine love of God source as the knowing of oneself. So what else is really more important than that? Well, we don't know really until we're willing to drop what we think is really the most important thing. And through the natural process of our living of it, because we can't really ignore our own path's desires, because like I said, they're stepping stones to then reveal that underlying desire, which inevitably at some point will take fold. It will take all of the focus. It will begin to focus all of one's energy upon it naturally. but it does take time. It's not something that could be forced, and it's not an intellectual thing, because your desires will naturally make themselves known, and if we repress them, they will come back in other forms at a certain stage. But the beauty is that as we're consciously cultivating the focus upon this desire, we start to see that the other desires start to kind of reveal themselves in more truth, or they kind of just start to fall away like a leaf off a tree, or balance themselves, so that yes, the energy can be placed upon this ultimate desire and ultimate focus. This to me is, if this is the focus, then the path and the practices and the methods, the techniques, the unfoldings that's unique to each individual, and you watching this, will come clear. It will make itself clear, because there is no one formula or one specific way, although there is a science to awakening and ascension and enlightenment. There is certainly a science, and that science has been documented in many traditions that have been already on planet, and traditions that have been more new, like in freedom teachings and Kahlonic science traditions, or other things that are intuitively coming through people at this time, where more and more clarity as to the path is revealing itself, and an individual unique processing of what is unique to me and what is useful to me in this path, while we still again come back to these core methods, core practices, core techniques that are inherent and universal, and do work, in the sense that so many people are focusing on just information and knowledge, and a constant consumption of practice, when can you ever develop a certain new stage or level of your life? Like, I was reflecting, like, for instance, if we wanted to get good at kayaking down a river, well, there's only two things we really got to do. One is to practice kayaking in a level area, in an area where we can actually practice methods repetitively, like the technique, repetitively, over and over. Get the technique, learn from a teacher, or learn from, teachings, and specifically learn the techniques. And then we go and we ride down the river, and we practice those techniques again, but in a new way. Just like in martial arts, you learn the technique, and then you go and spar, or you fight, and you engage, right? Like in anything, in music, you practice the notes, you learn the notes, you learn how to read the notes, you learn how to hear the notes, and then you play and you practice the notes in rehearsal, and then maybe in performance, or et cetera, et cetera. So everything requires these different ways of practicing skill set and developing skill set, but through engagement. So this is so important, on the path as well. We have to be willing to engage the practices, engage the techniques, engage them in both a way where we're learning them step by step, we're engaging them in a particular form, how we're learning them, how they're being taught, and then we engage them in our life, and we engage them within the fluidity of our life, and we see how is this application now making me a master in navigating the river, in navigating my personal song, which is my life, in navigating this unfolding, right, of this art. But it's developing the skill set and technique in practice, and then practicing those practices in life, in the engagement of our day-to-day, process. So there's no replacement to this. Like, there's so much kind of like mental, repetitive just thinking and analysis and trying to figure out. But you figure it out through the engagement of practices. Without them, it's not useful. And there's a lot of conversation in more advanced stages where people want to drop practices, or they think, oh, well, that's like counterintuitive, because if I'm already in the natural state, if I'm already it, why would I practice things to get to where I already am? Well, you could say that pretty much about anything. When you become a masterful musician, why would you necessarily practice the most basic level things any longer? You may just not naturally have to do that, because you're doing it so consistently within your life. But under the surface, you're actually still practicing it. It's still being engaged. It's just being engaged in a new way. So it'd be irresponsible of us to share that type of perspective, that we don't need practices. And this is usually only shared by people in the non-dual scene who have just come to this new level, who then share, well, we don't need it anymore, as if they didn't need it along the path. That's kind of silly. So that's kind of like honeymooning phases that fizzle out, and then we come back to realize, wait a minute, actually, no matter how advanced I get, I still actually engage these same ways. It's just in a different way. And on a more advanced look, new practices or new ways of engaging things actually start to emerge and start to be engaged, or relative things to learn become quite important, right? To actually engage things in that very humble and level one type of fashion, even though you've advanced into very advanced stages on your path. So we can never get too humble in regards to that, and in regards to our cultivation of skill set on this journey, because self-realization is not just one dimensional. It's not just one thing, even though it's kind of oversimplified into just one thing. Like, I'm going to self-realize, and it does require that one-pointed concentration, but it's only because it is such a vast and infinitely complex process that requires that one-pointed concentration, so we can take things just one step at a time. One stage at a time, one engagement at a time, one practice at a time, one teaching at a time, one moment at a time, and navigate ourselves from there. It's an eternal process either way, so something we have to always be humble to remember, and continue to come back to like that abiding ultimate focus and love and devotion to this process and this path, and everything kind of reveals itself from there, right? So that was a long-winded answer to this question, but it covered many facets and hopefully be helpful. I'm making the attempt to do more videos like this because I used to do them a lot, and I know the whole social media space is pretty much video. My feed is pretty much all long-form written content, which people seem to appreciate, but I can see how this could be helpful as well. So I hope this was helpful. Now, one thing I will mention is we have our Awaken to Freedom level 1 course launching again with a new group, but all of the level 1, level 2, and new level 3, which will be focused on more advanced topics of self-realization, non-duality, eternal non-duality, as I like to call it, and healing, deeper healing processes. Will be and continuously available on recording, but the group calls, which I'll invite everyone to come to this week and ongoing, can be quite helpful as well, because it's nice when we can gather and share and go into Q&A as it's naturally arising with those that show up. So send me a message or follow the links and you can engage that. There's always availability for some one-on-one time as I'm in the flow of that, which I am now. So send me a message, connect, share this video, comment, like, subscribe, whatever platforms they're on. Deep love. Chat soon.